In this video, we're going to learn how the command line works, and to do this, we use the command page. To get to the command page, first log into your dashboard. Once there, click on the CMD icon on the left-hand side. This will bring you to the command page. The command page has two major parts. The first is the command line located at the bottom where you enter the commands. And the second is the window above it where the results of your commands are displayed. Before you can type a command at the command prompt, the cursor needs to be in the prompt. You do this by placing your mouse on the command prompt and clicking. Once you've done that, you'll notice a vertical white bar on the left-hand side. This is called the cursor. If the cursor isn't on the command line, you won't be able to type commands. A command is simply a word or a phrase that you type into the JackBord to tell it to do something. Now it's time for you to run your first command. Put your mouse pointer in the command prompt and make sure that the cursor is there. Then type HI and press Enter. The JackBord will display a message. Notice that the command you typed appears just above the output of that command. This is because the JackBord will display the command you've just typed, and then it will display the command's output. Now, try running the VS command. This will display the JackBord's status. Type VS at the command line and press Enter. The JackBord will display some status information, similar to that shown here. So far, the commands we've looked at are very simple ones, and they don't require any additional information to do their job. Some commands do need extra information. For these commands, we supply the extra information in what are called arguments. And arguments come after the command itself. The GT command is a good example of this. You can run this command by itself by simply typing GT at the command prompt and pressing Enter. When you run it, the GT command will display the current state of all of the port pins on the JackBord. But what if you just want to know the current state of the port A pins? In this case, you supply the GT command with an argument. The argument will be the letter A. This argument tells the GT command that we only want to see the port A pins. Accordingly, for the command output, as you can see, only the port A pins are displayed. The important thing to remember is that the command argument was A. This is because we only wanted the GT command to show us the port A pins. In this next example, we're going to use the GVR command to read a voltage value from port pin A1. The first thing we need to do is tell the command which pin we want to get a voltage reading from. In this case, it's A1. After that, we need to tell it what we want it to do with the reading. In this case, we wanted to scale it between 0 and 100. So our second two arguments will be 0 and 100. Our final command will look like this. When you run the command, the output will look something like this. Running the GTA command shows that the voltage on pin A1 is 12 millivolts. If you put your finger across port A as shown, you should see the values change. Click on the Live button on the left-hand side to go to the Live page. When the row for port pin A1 appears, click on it and a table of the last 10 values will be displayed. Now put your finger on port A and watch how they change. This is because your body is a conductor of electricity. If you wish to use the command that you've already typed in again, you can do this by pressing the up arrow on the keyboard. Using the up and down arrow keys, you can move through your command history. Once you have the command you wish to run, press Enter. The JackBord has a number of user LEDs built in. We're going to turn the first one, which is on the front right-hand side, on and off using the L1 port command. But before we do this, just a quick note. The user LEDs are controlled by port pins L1 to L3. In this example, we're going to be using user LED number 1, which is on the front of the JackBord, to the right of port B. This LED is controlled by port pin L1, so in the commands that we're about to use, we will be using port pin L1. Click the CMD button on the top left-hand side of the page to go to the command page. Then at the prompt, type L1 space 1, and the user LED on your JackBord should go white. Then try L1 space 3. This should make the user LED go red. L1 space 6 should make it go yellow, and L1 space 8 should make it go green. Here are some of the other colors you can use with the user LED. To turn it off, type L1 space 0. The get command will first set a pin as an input and then get its value for you. So for example, get space A1 will set port pin A1 as an input and then return its current value, which in this case is 0. Now, if we click on the A1 button at the top of the command page, this will turn it on and it goes green. Now if you run the get command again, you'll see that the value has changed to 1. This method can be used with any of the port pins on A, B, C and D. So for example, to get the value of port pin C3, we would run the get space C3 command. A delay makes the JackBord wait for a specified amount of time before carrying on with the next task. These can be useful in timing things. The delay command, or the DLY command, is followed by a delay in milliseconds. You use this command to create different delays. So for example, to make a 500 millisecond or half a second delay, the command would be DLY space 500. To save some typing, there are a number of built-in standard delays. So for example, D50 will delay for 50 milliseconds, D250 will delay for quarter of a second, and so on. The toggle command is TG, followed by a port pin value. The purpose of this command is to flip the port from whatever value it is now to the opposite value. So for example, if we use the toggle command on the user LED, if the LED is turned off when we first run it, it will be turned on. Likewise, if the LED is turned on when we run the command, it will be turned off. You can try this yourself on your JackBord. Up to now, we've been entering each of the commands one by one at the command line. While this works, it's time-consuming, especially if you have a number of commands that you want to run one after the other. To do this, we need to be able to enter more than one command on the command line at the same time. The JackBord will let us do this by entering each of the commands together on the command line and separating them by a pipe character. You will find this on the / key, which is usually near the Enter key on your keyboard. You access it by pressing the Shift key and the / key. This technique is called daisy chaining because we're daisy chaining commands together on the same command line. To run the collection of commands, simply press Enter. In this example, we're going to use a series of daisy chain commands to flash the user LED on and off. Type the commands as shown into your JackBord and press Enter. If all is well, the user LED should flash on and off. Notice we have the user LED commands spaced with D250 delay commands. The D250 commands result in a 250 millisecond or quarter of a second delay between each change in the user LED. As an additional exercise, try to replicate the effects of this command using the toggle command. To summarize, daisy chaining allows you to combine multiple commands in the same command line entry. Each of these commands is separated by the pipe character, and you don't need to have any spaces on either side of each pipe character. Finally, here are some tips. First of all, you can move through the previous commands that you've run using the up and down arrows on your keyboard. Secondly, commands are not case sensitive. Thirdly, the longest command that you can enter on the command line is 120 characters long. And finally, to run a command, you press the Enter key. Now that we have a basic knowledge of how the command line works, the next step is to read the JackBord Journeys book called Using the Top. In this, you'll learn some basic electronics and also a lot more about how to use commands and control things with the JackBord. Alternatively, you can watch the video of the same title. You can find this journey book and other videos on the JackBord website. If you go to www.jackboard.org and click on the Start Here link on the upper left-hand corner.